Look at the situation of Arabic 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, we have such an abundance of texts that range from the Syrian desert all the way into the Hijaz, Najd, and further south. So many texts. And what we can see 2,000 years ago from these inscriptions, and most of them are using a formulaic language, that there is such a diversity, a huge diversity in the kind of Arabic that exists at the time. So there's already a lot of dialectal diversity 2,000 years ago. So, for example, in the Safavidic inscriptions, which are located in basically in the Black Desert, the Basalt Desert on the border of Syria and Jordan that extends into Saudi Arabia, in this relatively small area, you have just from the inscriptions themselves that are all actually saying the same thing. So we don't get a window even into the kind of dialectal diversity that exists. But even by saying the same things, we see there's a huge amount of synonyms being used. We see there's a lot of grammatical differences. So for example, some verbs that end in a ya, like baka, bakaya, he wept. Sometimes they'll be written with, or let's use ataya, he went, ataya. Sometimes it's written atawa with a waw, and sometimes just ata. So it already shows that you have three different pronunciations of the same verb in the same area. So that's around 2,000 years ago. Let's move to the 6th century, the century before the rise of Islam. In the 6th century, there is now an explosion of Arabic script inscriptions from the 6th century. These are being discovered all the time because there's a lot of interest in the subject and people are going out and looking and exploring places. Right. And what's remarkable is that you have the use in the 6th century of basically one script from Yemen to Syria, okay, from the border, from the edge of Yemen to Syria. But what you don't have is a single writing tradition. So there's a lot of variation in orthography and the way people wrote. There's a lot of variation in phraseology. They don't look like the inscriptions. If we go forward just one more century to the end of the 7th century, the 8th century, there's incredible uniformity.
Standardization, yes.
Standardization. A century earlier, there isn't standardization. So when we ask the question of what Arabic was like at the dawn, during the, or at the beginning of Islam, at the dawn of Islam, the question itself supposes that there is one kind of Arabic. And in fact, there was probably a huge diversity of Arabic. That's what the inscriptions are showing us. Okay.